Story 1. So, about 4 to 5 years ago, my buddy called to say he shot a doe, but she ran into the woods and wanted an extra set of eyes to help track. I, of course, got my stuff together and headed over. By the time I got to the farm he was hunting, it was dark out, so we headed out across the field. While approaching the tree line, I noticed what appeared to be a porch light through the woods, so I asked him how far off the house was and what other houses were around. He assured me there were no houses or anything. I assumed he was confused, so I pointed the light out to him, and damp, he was baffled. At this point we're 200 YDs from the tree line, and without anything to compare the light to, it was hard to gauge how far into the woods the light was, but it appeared to be 100 YDs in. So it's about then we realize the light is moving towards us, but not like someone walking with a flashlight or headlamp. There was no sweeping, no up and down bobs, and was about 8 feet off the ground. This is not easy terrain either. It had been logged years before, so the underbrush was extreme. Mix that in with the old skidder ruts and everything else. We immediately knew something was off about it. It moved smooth as butter and completely silent through the woods. When the light eventually got to the field, it stopped for a moment and traveled to the left from our perspective for about 50 YDs, stopped, went up about 15 feet, then back down, then back up. I turned to my buddy and asked if we should get closer to it. I don't know why. I guess I'm a curious individual without missing a beat. The only thing he had to say was why, right when he said that it was at. If the light focused in on us, like we had surprised it or something, and the entire area around us lit up with a dim light, almost as if it was a full moon but only directly over us. There was no moon in the sky this night. We were both officially freaked out and agreed it was time to get out of there and hightailed it back across the field. We went back for the deer the next morning and spoke briefly about what we had seen, but were just as stumped as the night before. Several weeks went by and I decided to tell my dad about it. He's friends with a guy who owns property neighboring the farm and thought it would interest him. Well, come to find out a few days later, when my dad saw him, he told his friend what we had seen. He said the guy got very serious and told him he had several encounters with this light in the past, but never told anyone about it in fear of people thinking he was going crazy. I know it wasn't human with a flashlight. I know it wasn't a drone, and I don't know of any animals that are capable of this. I do have a guess though. After hours of research, I came across Native American folklore that spoke about orbs of light that protect and guide white-tailed deer. I always wonder if that is what we saw, and it was trying to show us where his deer was, so it didn't go to waste. Story 2. One night when I was 10, I was woken up by my bedroom door opening, followed by someone sitting on my bed. I felt my leg grazed and the bed sink under a person's weight. It's just Mom, I thought, and I opened my eyes. It was not my mom. I found an eyeless boy. He had black, empty sockets, about my age, sitting at the foot of my bed. He extended his hand, and in it was a little box. I was startled, but reached out. He pulled back. I reached again and said, "Give it." Then I blinked, and when I reopened my eyes, he was gone, but I could still see the imprint where he'd sat on my bed. Fast forward 5 years. My girlfriend came over to do homework. After she finished, she took a nap while she waited for her parents. When they arrived, I tried waking her. She opened her eyes, suddenly, looking up at a corner where the wall met the ceiling. She pointed there and went back to sleep. I shook her again. She came to full consciousness and I explained what she'd done. She looked haunted. Up on the wall, I saw a little boy with no eyes. He was there, in a Spider-Man pose, staring at me. I freaked out and told her my story about the same kid. Fast forward another 5 years. I was with the same girlfriend, and we had a 2-year-old. We were living in my parents' house, in my old room. My daughter started waking up at the same time every night, and she'd talk. After a while, I noticed she had almost the same conversation every night. I playfully asked her once whom she was talking to. She said, "It's a little boy. He's nice. He's lost and looking for his mommy." My daughter's nightly conversations continued until we got our own place later that year. Story 3. In the dim glow of the campfire, Jake recounted the most terrifying hunting trip of his life. He and his friends had ventured deep into the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest in search of a legendary buck rumored to be the size of a small car. As they trekked deeper into the wilderness, the forest seemed to grow darker, the trees thicker, and the air heavier. Despite their nerves, they pressed on, determined to bag the trophy of a lifetime. As night fell, they set up camp in a small clearing, surrounded by towering pines. The crackling of the fire provided little comfort against the eerie silence that enveloped the forest. The darkness seemed to seep into their bones, and an inexplicable sense of dread hung heavy in the air. Just as they were settling in for the night, they heard it, a blood-curdling scream echoing through the tree. The sound sent shivers down their spines, freezing them in place. They exchanged nervous glances, but none dared to speak. Ignoring their instincts, they chalked it up to the wind or some nocturnal creature and tried to push the fear from their minds. But as the night wore on, the forest came alive with strange noises, rustling in the underbrush, snapping twigs, and the occasional guttural growl. Unable to shake the feeling of being watched, they huddled closer to the dying embers of the fire, their rifles clutched tightly in trembling hands. But no amount of bravado could mask the primal fear that gnawed at their insides. Then, just before dawn, they heard it again, the unearthly scream, louder and more menacing than before. Heart pounding, Jake peered into the darkness, straining to catch a glimpse of whatever lurked in the shadows. That's when they saw it, a pair of glowing eyes, burning like hot coals in the dark. Frozen in terror, they watched as the creature emerged from the trees, a monstrous beast with antlers as large as tree branches, its fur matted with blood. With a guttural roar, the creature charged, its hooves pounding against the forest floor like thunder. Panic set in as they scrambled for their rifles, fumbling in the darkness as the creature closed in. In a desperate bid for survival, they opened fire, the deafening roar of their guns echoing through the forest. But the creature seemed unfazed, shrugging off their bullets as if they were nothing more than annoying insects. With a sickening crunch, it bore down on them, its razor-sharp antlers slicing through the air like knives. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature vanished into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but a trail of destruction and the lingering stench of death. To this day, Jake and his friends refuse to speak of that harrowing night in the woods, haunted by the memory of the creature that lurks in the shadows. A reminder that in the wilderness, sometimes the hunters become the hunt. Story 4 title: The Whispering Doll. In the heart of a small, forgotten town stood an old Victorian mansion, its walls weathered with age and its windows adorned with intricate iron bars. Inside this mansion lay a secret, one that whispered through its halls with a chilling voice. Legend had it that the mansion was once home to a wealthy family who mysteriously disappeared one stormy night, leaving behind only their possessions. Among these possessions was a porcelain doll, delicate and hauntingly beautiful, with eyes that seemed to follow you wherever you went. Years passed, and the mansion became a subject of fear and speculation among the locals. No one dared to enter its crumbling walls, for they believed it to be cursed by the spirits of the family who had vanished without a trace. One fateful day, a curious young woman named Emma dared to venture into the mansion, drawn by the allure of the As she stepped through the creaking doorway, a shiver ran down her spine, but she pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind the legend. The mansion was a maze of forgotten rooms and dusty corridors, each one filled with the echoes of the past. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she crept deeper into the darkness, her only companion the faint glow of her flashlight. Finally, she reached the attic, where she found the doll sitting atop an old trunk, its porcelain face illuminated by the moonlight streaming through the cracked window. Trembling, Emma reached out to touch it, but as her fingers brushed against its smooth surface, she heard a soft whisper in her ear. Bewildered, Emma pulled her hand back, her heart racing with fear. But the doll's lips did not move, and yet the whisper persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. With a sense of dread creeping over her, Emma fled from the attic, the doll's haunting whispers following her every step. She raced through the mansion, desperate to escape the clutches of whatever malevolent force inhabited its walls. But no matter how fast she ran, the whispers pursued her, their words becoming clearer with each passing moment. They spoke of dark secrets and forbidden desires, of lives lost and souls trapped in eternal torment. In a state of panic, Emma stumbled and fell, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she turned to face the doll once more. And there, in the dim light of the mansion, she saw its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, its porcelain lips parting to reveal rows of sharp needle-like teeth. With a scream of terror, Emma fled into the night, leaving the mansion and its cursed inhabitants behind her. But the whispers of the doll haunted her dreams, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within the shadows. And so, the legend of the whispering doll lived on, a cautionary tale for those who dared to tread where the living fear to roam. For in the heart of that old Victorian mansion, something ancient and malevolent lurked, waiting to ensnare the unwary in its web of horror.